Welcome aboard, Tyler Smith from thehoosier.com, and plenty going on with Indiana basketball still as they get a commitment from Langdon Hatton last night to fill one of the two final scholarship positions and the backup big that they were looking for, the 6'10" kid from North Harrison High School, originally down in southern Indiana in Harrison County, right on the river, and Bellarmine, playing for Scotty Davenport down there. So he's been schooled very well.
Yeah, I think it's a good fit. He averaged 10.5 points, 7 boards. Didn't shoot a lot of threes, but he's able to step out and shoot. So good fit. He can protect the rim a little bit. But I think there's going to be some good minutes available in that backup role. I was thinking, too, and to kind of calm some of the nerves of some IU fans, even if there's an injury out of the first two bigs, Ballo, Renew, you would just slide Mbako to the 4. Hatton would still be the backup at that point. So it's not like he's got to be ready for starter minutes necessarily in the Big Ten, but I think there's going to be a good role and good fit for him.
Well, it certainly depends, too, upon what type of style we see from Mike Woodson this year, or is it still an offense that runs through the middle? Or is it one that's going to have much more tempo to it and more movement on offense? That has not been what we've seen thus far under his regime. Of course, he had Trace Jackson-Davis in the middle, and then Kalel Ware, who is awaiting, going through. We'll talk about the fact that the NBA Combine is going on in Chicago right now, in which Kalel Ware and others like Zach Edey are taking part in, but we also haven't seen Indiana with this type of a roster in which they have twice the talent this year than they had last year. I mean, twice the talent. And that makes a gigantic difference in what you're able to do, how you're able to attack defenses, how much pressure you're able to put on. If you have enough to come off the bench and successfully play and not give up, say, a 12-point lead to Auburn, like what happened last year. They got up, boom, bring in this hockey lineup replacement of guys who are not all starter. None of them were starter type at the starter type of level. You give up that lead. Well, that's point. And now you're back to ground zero. They've got to be to the point, if they're going to do that those guys can hold their own and maintain those leads. But they are obviously in a much better position to do that with the roster that they currently have.
Yeah, twice the talent, twice the depth. You got multiple guys that could be starters. So that's going to be intriguing by itself to see how that all shakes out. But I also feel like the strategy that Indiana kind of put forth in the portal season kind of shows their hand a little bit. I mean, we're talking like out of the first 20 or so names that they were connected to, like 17 of them were wings, 17 or 18 were wings. And the fact that they're comfortable basically having one big as a backup, as opposed to bringing in 4 or 5, guys to play the 4 or 5 spots. So I feel like that with the backcourt guys they've brought in, I think we're at least seeing signs of a more modern kind of approach. Obviously, they got to go prove it on the court, but I think even the strategy that they've used in portal season kind of shows that that's the direction that they're trying to head towards.
Absolutely. And the fact that they have just this one spot left, I talked earlier, comparing last year with having that open scholarship, was very, very detrimental to that team because they did not have the depth. They did not have the talent. The numbers are even if the numbers are the same this year, completely different. They could not fill this, and I don't know that it would be missed. But I personally, if it's me, I'm filling the spot if at all possible, just because, if not for just for practice, to try to get somebody that can help elevate practice. But you can never have enough depth. Usually there are not many teams that are 13 deep. I'll be the first to tell you that. But right now, there's hardly anybody on that roster that can't play, which that's something great to have for you, going for you. And I would be shocked if they wanted to, that they couldn't find somebody to fill that last spot.
Yeah, for me, ideally, that last spot, if they could have brought in, another incoming freshman who may not play right away, but there's a guy that they see playing in a couple years, that would be super ideal. Maybe somebody who's a little more raw, even if they're not a freshman, maybe a sophomore transfer, somebody that's a little more raw that can learn from the depth that this team has, and then maybe he's ready to go the next year. Or maybe they find another big body or another shooter. But I think it's probably 50-50 or maybe even more that they don't end up filling that spot. But as you mentioned, and as we talked about last week, it's a much different feel having that open Scully compared to last season.
And so they'll go into this year with a full load and a team, again, that now will be looked at as one of the top, probably one of the favorites to I don't want to say one of the favorites to win the Big Ten title, because it's just way too early. Again, I always say I don't know what Illinois is going to be like. We don't know what everybody's going to be like just yet. It will never be easy. That's something I will guarantee you. You've got the addition of UCLA in addition to USC, Washington, and Oregon, but UCLA and Mick Cronin will be bringing a good squad into the Big Ten. We've got all that new introduction, so there's going to be a lot of newness going on, but Indiana seems set to take care of that. And more importantly, they need a good year for two reasons. Number one, Mike Woodson has to have a good year. There's just no question about it. Partly because I guarantee you, I don't have the figure, but I know it is a large sum of money that has gone into building this team. So if that were to go to waste, that's going to piss some people off. But in addition to that, and maybe more importantly, for the next recruiting cycle, which is extraordinarily important, you can always live in the portal, but I don't think that's something you want to have to do every year. But the 2025 class is of uber importance, and there are at least 4 guys that just jump out at you that they're trying to land. Trent Sisley, of course, Braylon Mullins, Malachi Moreno, and Jalen Harrelson.
Yeah, and all those guys have some big games coming up this weekend. Last weekend, I was in attendance to watch Indy Elite again. It was more of a tune-up weekend. They didn't play very good teams, but they were having fun. It was a dunk contest. They were getting up and running, and any experience they have as they get closer to the 3 SSB championships in South Carolina in July, any experience they have is going to be good. They're 15-0 now. Mullins was lighting it up in game 1. Sisley was really strong in game 2. And they are in Texas this weekend. I believe one of the teams they play has a Kentucky commit, Midwest Basketball Club. So this week going to be more challenging. They also play team-loaded North Carolina, which is coming off a 5-0 weekend. Not entirely sure how their strength of schedule in that 5-0 weekend, but obviously a talented team. So they play, and then big one this weekend is Indianapolis. Nike EYBL. Other IU targets like Jalen Harrelson will be in action. Lots of guys: Blake Thomas, Kyan Anthony, Darius Adams, Trey McKinney. Lots of guys all weekend long, and at the PAC in Westfield. And also, this is the first, I believe, live action period where Division I coaches can come watch these events. So it's going to be pretty crazy. If you go to circuithoops.com, I think has schedule and some info, and some stuff moves around a little bit as it gets closer. But I know, like tomorrow night, Harrelson will be action at, I believe, 4 p.m. And then he's got a 8 a.m. game Saturday morning. And then the rest of it will kind of depend on if they win or lose. But lots of big names, and it's not even just those four. Those four are the big ones, but there's a good 7 to 10. It feels like targets in 2025 that Indiana is closely connected to.
I assume you'll be up in Westfield to check out Jalen Harrison and that crew.
Yes, I will be. It should be pretty wild with a lot of action, a lot going on. The team Mello is there. The family from Michigan team, who's a really good. Malik Thomas plays for New Heights Lightning. So a lot of these teams will be, whether they get kind of a bit of a tune-up game in game one, but then they come together and play. And last weekend Malik Thomas was a first teamer, 22 points, 4 boards, and Harrelson was a third teamer, 17 points, 5 boards. So much talent, so much to dive into.
Yeah, and it's going to take a hell of a recruiting job by Mike Woodson and his staff to land these guys. Now, I'm not saying they're going to land all 4. That would be just a grand slam home run. I mean, that would be potentially one of the best recruiting classes in IU basketball history. Not the best. I'm not going to say the best because, number one, they had a team that was undefeated nearly for 2 years. So those recruiting classes, they have to stand out. The recruiting class of 1989 was pretty damn good. But as far as rankings, this would probably be, the ranking system wasn't around back in the day. This would probably, if they were to land those 4 guys, it would have to be the highest recruiting class Indiana has ever landed.
Yeah, I would think so. And, even if they end up with 2 or 3 guys, and then they fill in. There's some other guys they're targeting that are also top 100 that don't get talked about as much. And you look at even this past season when all that stuff went down, and all of a sudden, Bryson Tucker all of a sudden becomes available, and they snatch him up. So I think there's some opportunity for that as well, because they're going to have a lot of open spots for next year. So ideally, we've talked to these guys, Mullins and Sisley, Marino. They would like to decide late summer, early fall. So important couple months here for Indiana to try to seal the deal. And if they do on even one or a couple of these guys, then, that list of top 100, you can fill out that class and get a really, really impressive class coming in.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and thank you for enjoying our content and videos. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notifications toggle so you don't miss out on anything, whether it's Indiana Hoosiers, the Boilers, the Colts, the Pacers, Indiana high school action, whatever's happening in sports. We're trying to bring it all to you, and make sure you don't miss out on a thing. Again, hit the subscribe button for us. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much.